class. Your assignment for today is to finish your essay reflections, the ERQ rubrics that you were sent. For my IB students, I know it's disappointing that the 2020 exams have been canceled, but as Miss Dean's email stated, as my email stated, the IB curriculum is built towards building like inquisitive thinkers, and so how well you score on the test isn't really that significant. I like the writing model of IB because it does teach great writing skills that you'll need for any type of assignment in the future, whether it's because of your college assignments and what your professors are assigning you, or making the writings that you might do within your job, making various proposals and having people read your arguments for why we need to do this new developmental plan. And so the rubric structure, even though you're not being graded off it anymore, is still a good thing to understand to help you with your writing skills moving forward. So let's take a look at the different parts of the rubric. I'll let you know some mistakes that I consistently see, and this will help with your ERQ reflection and the deliverable for today. All right, so criterion A, it looks at your ability to focus on the question and make an argument. Right, so your introductory paragraphs, the whole goal is to tell me, why is this important, why is this significant, and what exactly are you going to tell me? It needs to go beyond just rephrasing the question. It needs to go beyond giving me a statement of purpose. Right, so often when I see thesis statements for our in-class assignments or in the ERQ essays, you tell me the theories you're going to talk about, but it doesn't make an argument about those theories. Right, because I'm going to talk about the medical model and the biological causes of depression. Okay, well, why should I care about that? Why is it significant? Why is it useful to know this? Right, by investigating the medical model and the causes for depression, we can effectively evaluate the medical therapies for treating a disorder. Or by understanding the medical model's causes for depression, we can understand the biological components behind our emotional standpoint. Right, so it goes beyond just stating the question or giving me the purpose of the essay. It gives me the argument and the thing you're going to try and convince me of throughout the rest of the essay. Right, this is why a very clear thesis is so important, because it gives you the focus of the question, and therefore it helps us understand all of the other criteria and why exactly I'm going to spend the next 10-15 minutes of my life reading your essay and thinking about the arguments you're making. Right, criterion B is you need to have some facts to back up your argument. All right, this is where you develop your core points. What is the component? So depression is linked with a lack of serotonin and norepinephrine. We know that there is a genetic component linked to depression where it's passed down within your genetic line. Right? That's knowledge-based. And so you would talk about, well, what exactly is serotonin? How does that influence what's going on? It's a happy, feel-good neurotransmitter. It is linked with feelings of contentment and safety. Norepinephrine is our excitatory neurotransmitter. It gives us energy, it gives us happiness. And so if I have depression and my body's not producing those neurotransmitters, that might be one of the causes behind it. Right? So you need to have the knowledge. You need to know what these neurotransmitters do. If I say genetic component, well, explain what that means. We have different genes within our body. It's passed down by our chromosomes and our parents, and therefore it's an evolved trait where some people are more susceptible to it than others because it's within your genetic code. And so this one is just looking at, do you have facts, terms, theories to show that what you're saying is credible? And so this one is just showing the definitions and the terms and the theories that you've learned and having facts and points to back you up. The facts are only important as long as we can trust the facts, which means criterion C is where you're proving your evidence, right? This is where you support those facts with testable, reliable data to show why it's truthful and therefore why I can believe it, right? If there is a genetic component for depression, we'll prove it. Well, we can say in our twin studies, we find that identical twins are much more likely to both have depression compared to fraternal twins. Since we know identical twins have the exact same DNA, fraternal twins, exact same environment, A discrepancy there would indicate a stronger genetic influence rather than environmental influence. You could talk about the different hypotheses, how the neurotransmitters are linked with a lack of serotonin, and that's why I have depression. And so here's this theory that documents it. And so with criterion C, you're giving your evidence, you're giving your stats, you're citing your sources to show that not only do I have these facts, but I know these facts are truthful, and therefore we can use them. All right. Criterion D is showing that you've thought about the evidence that you've picked and that you're aware of any shortcomings or flaws within your argument. All right. Here, they don't want you to just give us the information from the textbook. We want you to use the information from the textbook. Right? If all these people are consistently publishing new theories and new arguments based off of the same old studies, well, that means that it must be usable in multiple ways. And so with criterion D, our critical thinking is trying to assess the validity of your argument. You might recognize, oh, there's a shortcoming because this other theory says that my facts aren't true. For example, there's current evidence that serotonin isn't as heavily correlated with depression as was originally documented. This was going to be in the book we were going to read for our next unit, but obviously that's not going to happen right now because we're going to change everything. But if you're interested, I would highly recommend Crazy Like Us by Ethan Waters, and it looks at the globalization of the American psyche based off of our reliance on the DSM, and specifically does a chapter on antidepressants and how they aren't as reliable as we once thought. Right, so I could talk about those other findings showing maybe there's a flaw within my study, or the facts, the evidence that I've supplied might be a little weak, and so I criticize them to show that I've thought about them, but they're still important to know. All right, so this is all of our magic stuff. And so this slide, we've used this before we went into our midterm exam, but I posted this here in case someone wanted to review. All right, you want to make sure your critical thinking is usable. So don't speak in generalities, speak in specifics, something that I can use. All right, this study is good because it found what it wanted to. That doesn't make a study good, that just makes a study lucky. All right, so maybe the study is good because their sampling method was randomized and therefore that's the best at being able to generalize to a wider population. Or they used purposive sampling, so they definitely know their sample represented their target population because everyone in the sample had the same characteristics that they were looking for. All right, culture people use a lot. It only use people from this one country, so it's not going to work in other countries. Well, that's not really relevant if I'm talking about biology, because we're all humans, we all have the exact same bio, right? So maybe something specific in that culture doesn't apply. This study was done in the United States, where they talk about disorders from a more affective way, emotional way, so it would be hard to use the same information to help individuals in more Asian cultures where they describe their symptoms in somatic ways and the body physical feelings. Right, so with your magic thinking, make sure you're giving me something specific, a hard fact, a clear bit of evidence from your study to talk about its strengths or talk about its weaknesses. Right, the last thing, always for whatever writing assignment you have, is you want to make sure it's organized and it's clear. Right, what is your main theory? What's your thesis that you're trying to prove? And how does everything relate back to it? Right, so make sure you have clear paragraph distinctions and it's not solid pages of the same point. It should be separated out into easy digestible chunks. Each paragraph logically flows from one to the other, so use transitional phrases. Right? Try and link things back to your thesis every time. Idiot proof your answer by saying, if this is true, it relates to my thesis because blah, 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 blah. And so this last one just looks at that you can easily structure an essay. Right, so go through, use the mark scheme that I sent you to find the factual knowledge things, use the more detailed rubrics of these different criterions and how they're used within the mark scheme, and complete your ERQ reflection sheet. If you have any questions, I'll be online for Zoom at 9 and 2 o'clock today, or you can email me, or we can set up an individual Zoom meeting if you want. All right, have a good day, and let me know if you have any questions.